You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. All right, folks, welcome to another exciting episode of the Dangerous Liberty Live. And we got a great guest for you tonight. I'm going to introduce her in just a second, but we're going to have a fun, interesting, respectful, entertaining, happy-go-lucky, good discussion about everything going on, as well as some serious matters as well. I want to say hi to everybody over in the chat. We got John Rollins, we got Gary Shaver, Bronson in the chat. Who else we got over there? We got A.M. Atkinson, as always, Jason TG sponsor. We got Piper. We got Philip Taborik, and many, many more. If you're just tuning in, make sure you say hi over there, and we appreciate that. If you haven't done so already, make sure you like, subscribe, all those things. I'll see Peter Smith, Mr. Ken, a.k.a. Chiller56, and Thatcher Freeman. I'm sure I missed some more out there, but make sure you guys say hi, and we're going to get hard and heavy into it tonight. Real quick, I'm just going to go ahead and throw out the disclaimer before we even get started, but disagreement is welcome on this show. All right. We encourage it, actually. But name calling is not going to be tolerated. Like you're just going to get banned. This is an adult show discussing adult topics. And if you can't do that, can't participate like an adult, go watch something else. Kelly and I are going to talk for a while, just like a normal podcast. And then we will definitely get into a Q&A session with everybody out there, as well as making sure that we hit some of the, your comments as well. Super chats are going to be prioritized. We make sure to get some of the live chats in as well. And besides super chats, if you'd like to support the channel, we're now offering memberships. So, if you want to support us in that way, we really appreciate that. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on Kelly. And one of the things that I had in my notes, we were talking a few minutes before we got started. One of the top things was like, how do you pronounce your last name? Is it Rabon? Rabon? How do we say that correctly?
It's Rabon. At least that's the way that I say it. If you asked my parents, they would say Rabon. If you asked my grandma when she was alive, she would say Rayburn. So it depends on who you ask. But
you're trying to punch it up a little bit. I'm just joking. Well, you're down in Houston. As a matter of fact, let's just go ahead and take a minute. And for people that don't know you, just kind of introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Hi, guys. And thank you so much, Gary, for having me. I have become a big fan of your show since, the whole Charlie Kirk incident happened. And I'm grateful to have stumbled across you. And the work that you do, even though I disagree with you. Sure. We'll get into that. So I used to be an investigative reporter, and I guess I've kind of fallen back into it a little bit. But for 12 years, I worked in television all over the country, investigating everything from consumer issues to government, police accountability, and really holding everybody's feet to the fire. Anyone was fair game for me. It didn't matter what side of the aisle it was, what kind of uniform you wore, or if you didn't wear a uniform, you were fair game to me. And so had the privilege and honor of being able to change a ton of laws, win a bunch of awards, and hung up that the microphone to an extent, but for mom life, and then needed to focus on that a little bit, but still have the creative juices. So I transitioned into doing a little more of, we call it influencer space. I kind of don't like the influencer word, but content creator space. And so, here I am. So I look forward to being able to opine on some of these issues now, because, once a journalist, always a journalist.
Yeah, no, I And again, I'm glad we disagree, and I want to have more people on here that disagree on things. Look, if you stick yourself, and we're all guilty of this, right? If you stick yourself in your echo chamber where all you do is get affirmation on all of our dumb ideas, right? I mean, we all have dumb ideas, and we all believe dumb things that we haven't really thought out all the way a lot of times. As a matter of fact, today, I was just texting with Ian Carroll. I think we're going to have him on Saturday or Sunday. And one of the things I was expressing to him was the fact that I think this is really important that we keep this a respectful space. With that being said, I think we also need to make sure that we're searching for the truth and not just trying to make sure that we, as in, Gary tries to make sure that I'm not married to one idea and we're following the evidence and we kind of weigh that, but then also sanity check one another. And I think that's the important part of this. And that space to me is opened up to everybody that is genuinely in search of the truth. Now, the fact is, on all sides of any debate, discussion, or whatever else, there are grifters or there are people that are just ideologically driven for one reason or another. You name the incentive or whatever else, there's incentives and or motivations behind it all. So number one, I welcome you. I would definitely like to jump into the things we disagree on, and then definitely talk about, you being a former journalist, talk about the different ethics and honesty and objectivity that's going to be required if people are in the citizen journalism realm. And even that starts sounding really cliche to me. But if we're going to replace mainstream media, we can't be out faking news to fake news. And I see that a lot taking place. And, I think that's really what it's all about. So I guess let's start where, how do you see, you describe kind of what your view is of the entire Charlie Kirk incident? And I don't know, take it from there, I guess.
Well, so I would say that I'm not completely married to any, well, actually, let me start at the very, very beginning. So I did not follow Charlie Kirk at all. I'd heard the name and coincidentally had seen a video of his. I do watch a lot of YouTube. I'd cut the cord on my TV subscription last year. And so I watch a lot of YouTube. And one night, the weekend before this happened, late night had seen one of those debates. I can't remember what he calls it, but when he sits in the circle and has a bunch of the kids around him, right? And they run and they jump into the center and try to debate him on a topic.
Sure.
Anyway, for whatever reason, that stuck with me. Of all times, that was pushed to me before that weekend before the incident. Okay. So then that happens. And my mom, who I would consider to be, well, she is very, very conservative, was actually at my house that day. And she stopped by and she was distraught. I'd already seen what had happened. And I knew as a former journalist that when I got the push alert on my phone, the first place I went was to X, even though I haven't, had a need to be on Twitter very much in a long time. That's where I would go for breaking news. And so I screen recorded some videos because I thought, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this is what we're seeing. This is horrible. Right. And, and I thought, I want to be able to preserve this, sorry to be gory, but I've never seen anything like this before. And it was just hard to comprehend. And so anyway, I had saved that in that moment. And so I think that kind of became clutch, I say clutch, but later on down the road, because fast forward a little bit, and also to the point of the conversation is that how quickly did videos end up getting altered? I mean, and we don't even know how quickly, even just that day and in the hour plus post incident, that videos were getting altered. And that's just the world that we're living in now. Yeah. So all that to say, I just felt compelled immediately to start looking into it because something just didn't sit right to me. Not only was it super tragic, but for me, I looked in my, as I was looking in my feed, I was seeing it full of, so full of, this was all I could see in my feed. And it just seemed more saturated than I expected. And I don't know, I can't see the chat right now. And so I don't know if anyone else is echoing that sentiment or anyone else recalls that, but that was, it just seemed out of the norm to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, we definitely don't see people executed on live TV.
Yeah, sure. But the volume of it just being all that was talked about, anyway, it just seemed out of the norm. And so it just really, all of that piqued my interest from maybe I should be looking into this perspective. So then as I started watching, I came across your stuff. And I was very, very interested in hearing more about your perspectives and seeing how you dove into the specifics of protocols and procedures while, I was looking into things and looking into the specific trainings and whatnot that I think that the certain people there did actually have and maybe didn't utilize.
Well, we're not here to insinuate or innuendo. Let's get specific. So when you say certain people have had or did have specific training they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have it printed out in front of me, but I know I have it in my file in my computer. And I can tell you that, Brian Harpel definitely has certifications a mile long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely not out of date on anything. Right. And so, I mean, I just can't imagine. I mean, all those guys have a substantial amount of training. These aren't just rent-a-cops.
So where do you feel like specifically, because you're insinuating, I guess, kind of like they should have done something that you expect that they didn't do. So let's kind of narrow and parse that out just a little bit. Like what specifically are you talking about?
Well, okay. So let's just say that if we're talking about if you're starting to kind of count the things that maybe are the red flags, how about that? Sure. Things that don't look right.
Okay.
When you start adding up the list of the things that don't look right, that list started to get really long for me. And maybe hindsight can be 20/20, but it just seemed to be that it was way too many things to be pure coincidence. Even back in my day, which was a long time ago, I worked for the police department at my university. I worked for the chief of police and I was on student government. And so I was involved in those campus security meetings and from the student government side of things when it came to planning and approving events.
Sure.
And so I can remember what it took. Granted, that was 20 years ago, but what it took for my small university that only had 2,500 people to have an event approval. And so when I saw that event, I thought this would never fly, ever fly.
So what again, I'm just like specifically,
sure.
What were some red flags?
Not having an ambulance, right there on site, given that amount of people.
Okay.
Which, we've then later seen that there were apparently paramedics there. We have seen, people who were in at least paramedic outfits there and holding paramedic gear. that were passed, that were there, but we never saw an ambulance there on site. I would think there should have been an ambulance on site.
I haven't confirmed this, but apparently, because I've been trying to look into that and trying to get specifics of who those guys were, because you're right about that, and that they were there. And what was also strange too is like we didn't see that footage till, I don't know, like a week or two ago or something along those lines, which is fine. Some of this stuff is going to trickle out, but apparently Frank Turk or somebody said something about, I guess apparently there might be an EMT training there, and those might be trainees. Somebody in the chat has more specifics on that, but I guess that was some explanation that was put out to that. But go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Man, I'm feeling like maybe I should put up maybe I should have the chat running too in another browser or something, so I can try to keep an eye on what people are saying too. So I'm not like totally blind, but I mean, I could see the people in Adam Bartholomew's video from the jump, so I had my eyes peeled on those people from early on in the investigation. I'd hesitated to, and I kind of kicked myself personally. And I had, I talked to someone about doing a lengthy piece on dissecting that video early on, and I was dissuaded about doing that, and I kicked myself about that. I feel like I should have trusted my gut, just to be totally honest, because why not? That's just who I am. And I wish that I would have, because it's like so many of the things that I spot. It doesn't mean that there's anything nefarious. It's just, those were things that I saw. I kind of refer to it now as, it's like, where's Waldo? Because as you're looking through this massive amount of people, I call it like, where's Waldo? Because you're just looking for all of these little key pieces. And then if you look close enough, you start to spot them all.
Yeah, I would say you can spot some things for sure. I would say, I would say
not everything, but like a lot of things, and a lot of things that make you raise your eyebrows after the fact, right?
Yeah. Look, I think there is I think you're right on, like, I think we could probably agree that we're kind of both half right. Like once you see something like this event, and Butler is a great example. I don't know how much you paid attention to Butler in the attempted assassination on Trump. After Butler, and especially, when we had all this footage, and the difference with Butler was that, number one, it was being filmed live by professional videographers. We had a couple different news organizations there. And then on top of that, there were obviously lots of cell phones and things like that. And people were definitely going through and pixel peeping. And we've confirmed some of these things too with this case as well. But there are people pixel peeping and like, oh, I see this guy. Oh, I see this. Oh, I see a laser over here. Or I see something that looks like a gun over here. And like 90% of that has definitely been identified as incorrect or whatever, right? Because we do, you do become, we all do. And some of it's good, and you can definitely find some things. But it is trying to determine, like, between there's normal, there's abnormal, and then there's suspicious. And what I would say is that you're going to see a lot of abnormal stuff in an abnormal event like we had with Charlie Kirk. A great example of this is just recently those guys that were in green. They were like in green jump shirts or whatever. They were like, hey, I know Blake Bednar's. It was like, hey, we want to find these guys. And come to find out, I know one of them posted, hey, I was there delivering food. That was me. I mean, I guess that doesn't completely exonerate him, but I mean, I think it's he's like, we do this kind of crazy stuff all the time. But I do think people become hyper analytic to the point to where it gets a little weird, I guess.
Yeah. And then you also have to wonder objectively, like, at some point, does that become, and I don't know if there's, I guess I'm a little, I feel a little old at this point now, getting back into the game, right? So I don't know if this is the right use of false flag.
I'm older than you, so
I'm 40, but like I feel like so I hope, okay, false flag, something, but as a to take you off the trail, there seems to be a lot of these little nuggets like thrown in to kind of like take you off the trail for a day or two, and I don't know if it's intentional or not, or if it's just people getting excited or people getting or tired.
Sure.
I mean, a combination of all of the things. I don't know. People grasping at straws, people wanting to be relevant, people wanting to, I don't know.
I think it's all of that. I think there's a lot of good people. I think there's a lot of good intended people that are, again, overanalyzing. They come, if you come with the idea of predisposition, like if you have a predisposed idea of what's going on or whatever else, and then you look through the crowd and you see somebody doing a weird hand gesture or whatever like that, oh, that's confirmation for me. That's confirmation for this. And I do like, we'll definitely get more into this, but ultimately, as a journalist, or any, like, I don't even want, and not to understate journalism, but what I'm saying, just like anybody that's presenting a story, whether you consider yourself a journalist or an influencer or whatever else, I think there's a fair and ethical way to go about some things. And one of the things is like to present all possibilities. When you have a situation that's open to interpretation, for instance, when we are looking at those guys behind the table working on Charlie, Brian Harpole, among others.
Yep.
There's what immediately came out was, well, there was a bunch of negative things like, oh, they're killing him, they're taking this, a device off of him, or they're doing this or doing this, and that is all speculation. And I actually think it's okay to present that, but you also have a responsibility and a duty, if you care about the truth, to say, okay, that's a possibility. But here's another possibility. You know what? They're back there rendering aid. They're doing some wound packing. They're doing X, Y, and Z. That bag on Brian Harpole is actually an aid bag. And just like you said, Brian Harpole does have extensive training. And I would also say the reason, going back to the EMTs, number one, I don't think that they would be able to do anything more than what Brian Harpole and his team would actually be able to do. And number two, the other thing I would say is they were kind of in control of the scene. And also, when you do, there's a large spectrum. We've trained EMTs, and I'll just tell you right now, there's a large spectrum of capabilities of EMTs. Sometimes you'll have somebody that is like a paramedic that has a whole bunch of electronic to all kinds of other medical goodies that they can present forward. But there's an entire spectrum of capabilities and competence. And honestly, there's a very narrow protocol of what can be done with a wound, like we're talking about with Charlie, right? Like if my kid, for instance, if that was my kid, and with the training that I have, which is very similar to what Brian Harpole has, our company is NAEMT certified. So it's National Association of Emergency Medical Technicians. We teach TCCC, we teach advanced TECC. If it was my kid and he was shot in the neck just like that, and I'm sitting there packing the wound, or I'm getting him to the hospital, and some Joe Blow voluntary EMT that I don't know who is, I'm holding on to my son and like, hey, this is where I'm going with this. So I think all the speculation on either side of that is fair, but the biggest problem that I've seen time and time again is you only hear one side presented, and then it is perpetuated almost as fact incessantly, with any counter voice to it being shut down by saying, oh, this guy's a Fed. Like, no, I'm not a Fed. This guy's not a Fed. We're not paid by Israel. How about this is just a logical, plausible alternative to what you're saying?
I can totally get on board with that sentiment, and that was one of the reasons I was so appreciative that you were willing to hear me out and gave me a chance. Literally for the last 8 weeks, I feel like I've been jumping on the sidelines with my hand up, being like, put me in, coach, to whoever would listen to me, because I'm like, I have a wealth of knowledge. I stay up incredibly, embarrassingly too late at night researching this stuff. And, I want to help. And I know that I can be of use and contribute something to the conversation.
Sure.
Something.
Yeah.
Even if it's to make someone who has a whole lot more knowledge and experience with some other aspect think about something a little bit different that then helps, right? Something. You just never know. All that to say, thank you for, again, giving me the opportunity. And to also go to your point of, you took it the step further of going to show people. I remember you got your hands real dirty, all blood, or, with the fake blood stain or whatever it was. And that was so interesting, to see what that process was like. And I mean, honestly, after seeing that, I'm still not so convinced that they did a lot of work behind that table. But that's my opinion. That's my
Oh, that's 100%. I mean, everybody is welcome. Look, in the areas of speculation, everybody's welcome to draw their own conclusions, and that's fine. And I know no matter. Here's the other thing I think is a little lost on that whole situation is we only see that one view, but the reality is there were people all around. It wasn't just that one camera view. There's people from it, that were spectators that could be seen, and there was people all around that whole area where I think there were people that were spectators that had a full line of sight of what was going on back there. And let me ask you this. So, I've kind of given you my good faith, like, hey, this is what I think best case scenario is. What do you think is the worst case scenario that they were doing back there?
What do I think is the worst case scenario? I think the worst case scenario could be, hypothetically,
sure,
finishing a person off.
Okay.
If perhaps something was only like stunning, someone, then maybe it was finishing someone off. I don't know.
Well, what would be their motive? Like, because understand too that like these are security guys that they make their life, they make their living on security. Their entire ability to earn is based on their reputation. And they'd also been with Charlie for a really long time. That company was initially hired for like 1 or 2 jobs, and apparently TPUSA kept them on for quite a long time because of the relationship they kind of established with them. So what would it be their motive behind doing something horrific in public, by the way? Because like I said, I do think there were people that had a clear line of sight. Because you can see, as Adam Bartholomew goes around that side of the table with his camera afterwards, you can see what's going on there. And clearly there were spectators and everything else. So,
if it was that clear line of a sight, don't you think we would already see that crystal clear footage by now?
No, I mean, there's a lot of areas where we didn't get footage, and during that time was right after where a lot of the footage stops, and where other people that, and look, there may still be people out there with footage of that. I'm not sure.
You think somebody would not go sell that footage for $1 million to TMZ? 2 months ago. Like, come on.
No, I mean, I've talked to people that don't want anything to do with this. I'll just tell you that. The other thing too is if there is clear footage like that, it almost certainly the FBI has it. I think there's going to be so much footage that we're going to see in the trial that we obviously don't see now. And I think the only footage that we really saw was the stuff that the FBI wasn't interested in. I mean, I think that's generally what we're left with. And of course, the initial shot, there were so many people that were standing there that took footage when Charlie was shot. Yeah, that got out. So we got a couple of, and think about this too, like even as Charlie, like an incident wasn't taking place. Nothing was happening. Charlie was just talking to some guy about trans shooters. And then we have people holding up phones, and out of all of that footage, we've probably only got like 4, maybe 5 or 6, maybe 6, definitely less than 10 vantage points out of 3,000 or 4,000 people. I think that in and of itself is pretty indicative that there's probably more footage out there. It's shocking to me that only 10 out of 3,000 people were filming at that moment, and 4, like, why don't we have other footage? So the moment that shot went off and people realized what was going on, and Charlie was taken to the ground, I think anybody that was filming probably didn't film. A lot of people thought that it was an active shooting event. It wasn't just going to be Charlie, and I don't think they were even thinking about filming there at that moment. There could be footage, but also the other possibility is that a lot of people do not want to be involved in this. They do not want their name out there. They do not want to put footage out there because it hasn't turned out good for a lot of people that did put out footage. They've been under character assassination, all kinds of other things. I can tell you right now, Adam Bartholomew has told me, he's like, man, like, I've given footage to everybody. I just happen to be there. And, everything about him has been questioned, as well as, other eyewitnesses. Or the other thing I've seen, I'm sure you've seen it on Twitter too, is we've seen a couple of other pieces of footage drop where people, waited a few weeks, and what happens to them? Like, everybody asked them, like, well, why'd you hold on to this for so long? Like, this person owes it to the world to give them this footage. And, that's not the case. And I don't think I haven't seen it indicated where some of the most, I guess, important footage was actually sold. It may have been, but I think most people just dropped it on social media.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have seen, there is a website, and forgive me, I can't think of the name off the top of my head. It'll probably come to me in a minute, but that people can and were selling footage. They have it watermarked with their name across it, and the site acts like as a broker. I don't know how much money those people made off of it at the time or not, but sure. I will also add that guy, Ryan or whatever, who was saying that the FBI was telling him to delete his videos. Mm-hmm. Do you remember him from
Piper on X? She kind of broke that story where she actually talked to him, mm-hmm. and come to find out,
oh yeah,
he wasn't even there. And she did a great job finding it out. She contacted them. If you guys aren't following Piper, make sure you guys go follow her on X. She's broken some really cool stuff. Yep. But it was,
and it was very interesting, that the creators that did not, or we'll say, I don't know, the new media, non-traditional journalists, whatever we want to call, folks that did not take back their stories and then continue to use that footage in their examples to prove their cases. I mean, that's really bothersome to me. And one of the folks who I have, worked with over the last several weeks, he was really helpful in John Bray. He was really helpful in the early stages of when I came across Ryan. I was like, hey, what do you think about this video? And he looked at it very closely and he said, absolutely not. This humpback situation. Because I was like, wow, this t-shirt's very exaggerated in the back. I hadn't seen anything that looked like that before. And he said, yeah, this humpback, this is BS.
Now, you're talking about where Charlie was shot? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. And so, he was able to spot that it was BS too. So like we had already determined that
can I stop you there just real quick? I mean, that's an opinion.
Well, it was the only footage of all of the footage that had been obtained that looked like that. And then it turned out that Ryan was not even at the event at all.
No, he wasn't, but Cub Keller took that footage, right? Yeah.
Yes, but Ryan had altered the footage.
I mean, that's definitely, I wasn't
anyway
aware of.
I mean, John works very closely, like has worked closely with Cub and has a great relationship with Cub, and the whole thing. I won't get into their specifics, but that was just a real squirrely thing that went down, and it's just unfortunate when that kind of stuff happens. But the reality is then that footage gets disseminated, people take that as gospel, and then it's just hard to control. But that's just the reality of what we live in, with everybody wanting to do good. And then
I mean, I definitely think there's some people out there not wanting to do good on either side of this, right? I mean, there's no matter what side of the argument you're on this, I mean, there's ways that people can capitalize on it and exploit it, and people will. I mean, it's just the nature of people. What I would say is I didn't realize that piece of video was even anyone saying that it was somehow altered. It seems like the easy way to get that would be to be able to get the original with the metadata from Cub Keller. I think that would be, I mean, I think that's a way to at least get some more information on that. That's good information. And this is why these types of exchanges, like, we all have blind spots, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just exposed the blind spot of mine. Like, I hadn't thought about that footage had been altered. It was released. I mean, look, they can alter footage in a matter of minutes if they want to. So that's a fair point. And, I think we need to get to the bottom of that. And if we can get that original video from Cub Keller and make sure that it is,
Cubs is good.
Okay.
Ryan's was not. They're different. Cubs is good. Ryan's is not. We can sort it out later, but yes.
Yeah, no, fair notes on that for sure. That's an interesting thing. Because look, at the end of the day, what I want to do is I don't want to be fooled by anybody. I don't want to be fooled by the government. I don't want to be fooled by guys like Ryan or some of these other people that clearly are very, I don't know. Look, you're in the news. You were in the news business. I mean, at the end of the day, anything that is salacious, that is sensational, the more sensational, the more clicks and things like that is going to get views. And I think there's a huge element of this. Let me ask you this. We talk about, clearly there's like 15 or 20 different theories that are being pushed right now, or have been pushed from the beginning of this. So there's clearly much of that, without a doubt, is misinformation. I don't want to ascribe intent behind it. I mean, we can all, suspect intent. What do you think was the driving force behind that?
Money, power.
Sure.
I mean, that's what it boils down to, generally speaking. I think still it remains to be seen. The question is was it a foreign entity, or was it within the organization, or a combination of both? Or
is Tyler himself not an option for you?
No.
No? Okay, fair.
No. I think that he could have been, he could have played some small role.
Okay.
In it. Yeah. I mean, I believe, I don't think that he's completely innocent in everything. I don't think that he just was just dropped out of the sky.
Well, early on it was being reported that he wasn't even there. I mean, what do you think?
I think that maybe Lance could. We're talking hypotheticals here. I'm not accusing any. We're just saying potentially, maybe, perhaps Lance could have had more of a role of something than, and maybe kind of pegged it on Tyler potentially. He just seems to be more of the suspicious one than Tyler, based on behavior. And I want to say this, actually. Okay, this is one of the things that I've been wanting to like do a story on.
Sure.
I was when I was a journalist, and I've looked now, I've glanced down a few times at my chat, and I see at the chat, and I see people questioning, what does investigative journalist even mean? Anyone must be able to call themselves an investigative journalist, and don't have any more females on, Gary. So, I'm happy to address.
If anybody says anything about females, or again, you guys are being disrespectful, moderators, just ban. Look, we're going to have a respectful discussion. Make sure that you guys treat the guests with respect. I don't care if you disagree with her. We're not going to go through ad hominem nonsense or talk about, her genitalia doesn't determine her intelligence. That doesn't work for me. So anyways.
They're entitled to their opinion, just as I'm entitled to mine. But so I was working in Denver when the Aurora theater shooting happened. And so I'll never forget, James Holmes, shot up the theater that night. And very quickly, the decision was made that we were not going to say his name.
Okay.
The victims' families didn't want his name stated. The law enforcement didn't want his name stated. They did not want to give any more, they just didn't want to acknowledge him anymore.
Sure.
And so, that was 10 years ago, but I find that interesting. Okay. That coupled with, in that case, very quickly, they were able to determine and released that he had been planning this out. He had been going to the shooting ranges. They had determined which ranges he'd gone to practice. He'd stocked up on ammo. He'd bought all these supplies. He had told his therapist, that he'd made these plans. He'd mailed this manifest. He had a manifesto. He'd mailed something to the college. He had set up a booby trap in his apartment that the FBI had to send in like a bomb robot to dismantle. All this stuff, right? And so contrast that with Tyler, and it is completely different. And so I just wonder if that's
different how? Because I feel like there's a lot of I think there's more indication of planning, and it actually documented, especially in the charging documents with Tyler, than almost anything that we've ever seen before. I mean, he talks about, and I know some people are either going to believe the charging documents or not. But here's what I'll say about the charging documents. The charging documents hold a lot of weight for me, in that if that information is incorrect, we're going to find out immediately in court with other witnesses and things like that. When they bring the parents up there and they say, hey, did you say that you identified your son in that video, and then your husband also double identified him, and then you both called him because you thought he was potentially the shooter, amongst a lot of other things. But in those charging documents, it does talk about the messages saying, hey, I've been planning this for 2 weeks. So, and then on top of that, I think there's clear intention of planning. Whoever that person is, whether you believe it's Tyler or not, intentionally changed clothes multiple times. Definitely did, I don't know, you can call it a dry run or pre-attack surveillance. He went to the site, went back, got the stuff that he wanted, changed clothes, and then came back. I mean, I think that shows deceit. I think that shows a level of planning and intelligence. And he's what, 22 or 24? I forget. Tyler?
I think 22, I believe.
22. And, people are like, oh, a 22-year-old kid, not very smart. Well, I was a 22-year-old kid when I was a sniper team leader running around Iraq and Afghanistan, planning my own missions. And 22-year-old kids are much more intelligent than I think people give them credit for. But so when you say you don't,
yeah,
when you say you don't see anything like that, when you say, what do you mean? What don't you see in the case with Tyler that you did see with John Holmes, I believe his name was?
James. Yeah, James Holmes. I don't see that level of the hard evidence. I just don't. I don't see the manifesto. I don't see. I think that those text messages were laughable. They don't sound realistic. To me, I mean, even my 9-year-old, he said, that's cap or something, whatever the kids say when he heard them read out loud on the news.
The texts are weird. There's no dispute from me on that for sure. I don't know if that means that they're not legitimate, but they're weird. But I mean, they were living a weird.
They were living an interesting, a different life. Yes. Yeah. I think that leads even more to the fact that I don't believe that that's how, they were talking, but that's just my opinion. I guess, at the end of the day, we just really have to, we want to get this show. I know we're all chomping at the bit to get this show on the road.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, everybody wants evidence and I get it. And this is part of the problem or a concern that I have. When we have, I mean, don't you think as a journalist, if you were a journalist and this is a genuine question, this isn't rhetorical. So if you're a journalist and you're reporting on this and you're sitting on a major news network and you say, hey, you know what? I don't know what was going on behind that table, but I think they were killing him. I think without evidence of that seems like a pretty big accusation when you're saying that someone was involved in a conspiracy, murder, had their hands on doing whatever else. To me, that seems not only unethical, but it seems immoral. I mean, there are things that we can say, but man, I think there's going to be a lot of big names in social media sued after this because they have clearly, and the problem is that all the narratives can't be correct. And some of these people are getting them extremely wrong for sure, at least in some points of it where you're dipping your toe hard into defamation. I mean, and
some people are diving head first into it. Yeah. Especially when it comes to the non-public figures.
Yeah.
And that's what they don't understand, the laws of the land, the rules of the game, they just think that they're living in social media land and that I don't know what they think they're doing, but
I think the First Amendment is going to cover them or hey, I'm just a nobody, so nobody's going to come after me. Folks, I'm telling you right now, if I was on the receiving end of some of the stuff that these people are, and again, the problem is I have a list of freaking different perpetuated theories, and these are all mutually exclusive. They not, and part of these are pointing fingers directly at people saying this guy killed him or this guy had the ignition device that blew him up, or man, I'm telling you, number one, I think it's wrong to do that from an ethics standpoint, especially if you consider yourself a citizen journalist or I don't know, you have a, I don't know, man. It just seems like we've abandoned some basic tenets that we should all hold sacred in America. We're innocent until proven guilty. And if you don't know, if there's 50 options there of what could be taking place, and I'm not just talking about what happened behind the table. We come to a lot of crossroads in this entire debate or this entire situation. Like, what were they doing here? What were they doing here? Why this? Why that? And there's crossroads at every single one of those with multiple routes we can go down. But every time, it's like if every 10 feet I come to an intersection, and the worst case scenario is always to the right, and every time I come to that intersection, I go right, and then go right, and then go right, and then go right. And I don't ever consider any of these other plausible options. Not only does it seem like a narrative is being pushed, but on top of that, it's not even plausible at that point to me. That's the way that I see some of that.
And then you just give up and move on.
Well, I don't think anybody should.
Somebody else figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody should give up. I just think that I just wish everybody would. I wish everybody would require a little bit more evidence, a little bit more something before they go out there and hit the send button, I guess is and then also just be fair about it. Just be an honest broker of information. Those guys, very well, I have no proof that they weren't back there killing him. I think there is a lot of evidence that they were back there packing that wound. I do believe that. And I do believe and the other thing too is a lot of these things end up falling apart a little bit under their own weight. It's like, hey, why was there no one covering the roof? Well, the UVU police said that they were going to cover the roof, and they didn't. Why was there no drones? Well, UVU, according to TPUSA, they said they tried to put drones up, and that was denied by UVU. And I can tell you, UVU denied me to fly a drone and expected me to jump through all these hoops, only to tell me no. Even though I tried to contact them ahead of time and I did all the due diligence I possibly could, I still flew a drone. I just had to go off campus to do so. But
we know that a drone was flown.
We don't actually.
No, we definitely do. We do. I mean, Frank Turek talked about it beforehand.
So there's two things about that. Number one, I've heard two stories on this, and I've seen one picture. So two things are. I've heard a story, unconfirmed, that TPUSA actually got a drone up in the air at the beginning, and then they were contacted by UVU police and were told to bring it down right at the beginning before Charlie was there. That's one possibility. The other one where people say, look, a drone was flown, was there is a picture looking down the crowd right at the banister of that second story walkway behind Charlie Kirk. I don't know if he saw that picture or if there was video footage from that, or possibly the drone was flown and they were told to, because that's what I did. I released the drone right there where the banister was, where Tyler allegedly jumped the rail, went out there onto the, and then UVU police contacted me and was like, hey, you got to bring that down. I'm like, well, you guys don't own the airspace. We argued about it. I was like, go talk to my professional pilot drone flyer guy over there, and you guys can hammer it out. Well, he made him bring it down. So, I mean, there's a clear explanation for that. That was the explanation given. I don't know that there was actually any footage from a drone. I suspect, and this is speculation on my part, that picture from above the rail, which could have been on a cell phone selfie stick, it's barely above the rail. It's not that high. I think that could have been misinterpreted as drone footage that Frank was talking about, but I could be wrong on that. I admit that right up front.
I saw a photo today from a small group that I'm in, and yeah, it was, and I was a little occupied because my kids were home today, but sure. My understanding is that it was related to the vehicle that they were, riding when they were riding in. Mm-hmm. And the one that Frank and them were monitoring.
Okay. And again,
the older guy, Butch, that I think that he, Butch Hibbs, is that his name? That he flies drones.
Mhm.
So stay tuned on that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that information will come out at trial for sure. Was there a drone? Was there a drone flown? Was there a drone flown?
At least beforehand. In the this was time-stamped stuff, in the discussion that our small group was having. Yeah. So there'll be more info that comes out. I was just kind of out of pocket today with my sick kiddos, but yeah.
And again, this is why let's reinforce the fact that why these conversations are important. So, like, if there's something that I don't know about, and the more people that we can get involved, regardless of how
we work together. That's what I love about this. It is all about collaboration, and it's when people start like shutting doors on each other, that's when it's not productive. I'm so glad to be able to have productive conversations.
Yeah, no, it's super important. It's also, it checks our own biases because we all have them. I mean, that's just a fact. And we all have preconceived notions and things like that, without a doubt. Now, look, there was definitely a bunch of misinformation put out by social media specifically. And we can talk about if there's anything that you take exception with that was put out as far as like a government narrative or whatever else. But do you feel like that it's possible that because we, almost immediately the first thing that was put out was, hey, Tyler was a right winger. They were fighting that battle for like a week. Tyler Robinson was never at UVU. The event was only announced on September 8th or 9th, so he wouldn't have time to. That's something we actually kind of debunked in the last couple of days. That was only, they only knew that they were going to have it in the courtyard a couple of days prior to. That's newer, so that doesn't really count at the beginning. But he was shot by someone in an underground hatch. That was within a day or two of this. He was shot with a palm gun. He was shot with, an iPhone gun, flying drones, killing people, all these things. With that amount of misinformation being put out, do you feel like that it's possible that like the waters were so muddied at the beginning that most people didn't really have a chance to objectively assess the situation and might feel, even with no evidence now or less evidence, that like, hey, there's definitely like kind of what you said a little bit is like, I'm not sure, I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's like something here. Do you think that some of that misinformation could cause those emotions, I guess?
Sure. And even with an open mic tonight, I'm still nervous looking at the chat. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can even. I'm like, I'm a tough cookie. But like they might send the firing squad out for me next.
Don't worry about that. There's people that are going to talk shit.
I'm kidding. I'm good, but but no, I mean, like I do think that for one, it does. You get a little jaded and it does start to sway your mind a little bit one way or another, maybe. Or two, you just get exhausted and think, oh, someone else will figure this out.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, look, I think I'll tell you that the first 2 weeks of covering this stuff, for sure, I was sleeping like there was like 3 days where I would stay up 2 days in a row covering content. I would get like 3 hours of sleep. I would wake up, and then do it all over again. And then like the first week, I literally probably had 12 hours of sleep like the entire week that we were covering this, because it is exhausting. And I thought one of the real important things was, look, I hate misinformation. I do. I don't care if it's coming from the government. I'm always suspicious of anything the government. We know that the government lies. Shouldn't even be a thing anymore. Like, it's not up for debate. Like, whether it's COVID, whether it's, like, we can go down the list. Like, we've been lied to 1,000 times. I did a whole show on just like government conspiracies, MK Ultra. There's a lot of good evidence that JFK was killed by his own government. We know that the CIA is constantly monitoring us when they say they're not just CIA, but NSA and many other things, right? Like, we know that experiments have been conducted on the American people by their government. And this isn't even today. This is like going back 50 years ago, like when we thought the government.
On a slow day, you'll have to go back and look into John Wilkes Booth.
Yeah, no, I've heard it, right? I've
done stories about that. I'll have to pull that up and show you. That's from the old Kelly archives.
I would love to go down that rabbit hole. I really would. And I've looked at it just kind of peripherally, and I know that there's like a bunch of conspiracies with that, and I'm down to listen to it, because I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. People make fun of me. I'm like, I don't know, 60-40 that we went to the moon. Now
my 9-year-old wants to watch stuff on that. So, so I've created a little monster.
There is no doubt that
critical thinker. That's what I say. A critical thinker.
Like, there's no doubt that the government lies to us, but we also know that. Look, I think this entire situation is ripe for political interference, foreign adversary interference, and they're going to latch onto this, and anything that they can do to undermine what little trust that the U.S. people have in the U.S. government. They're going to try to diminish that more. And look, I don't think that the government or the FBI or the CIA or any other agency deserves a lot of trust, but I also don't want to be lied to and manipulated by another foreign government trying to take advantage of our sentiment toward our own government. And I don't want to be taken advantage of politically. And look, I think that no matter what happened, let's say it was 100% sure Tyler Robinson did it. We all knew it. We watched him do it. We had video of it. Look, there are political elements here at play that would try to do some subversion to where it would affect what we just saw, the midterm elections in different ways. And here's another thing too. Like, I genuinely believe, like, I think I don't know how big it would be, and it's speculation on my part, but I think the midterm elections would have gone slightly different if Charlie Kirk was still alive. And all of this stuff hadn't consumed us and undermined, the political trust that we had and the leaders that we have now. So I think there's going to be different people using this for additional misinformation, and it could be all aspects of all the above. And I think there is some elements of that. And then, of course, there's the people that are just going to go after the clicks, views, and make money off of it. I mean, there's, no doubt about that. That's there too.
I do think whoever they is, thought this was going to go much differently. I don't think they thought necessarily that people were going to get this hung up in deep diving. I think they thought that people were going to be upset and moved emotionally, and that it was going to galvanize people. But I don't know that they thought it was going to cause people to really question everything.
Well, then those people are not a student of history, because every time we've had an event like this, going back from as long as I can remember, whether it was the Las Vegas shooting, definitely with Butler, Twitter was all consumed by the attempted assassination on President Trump. I don't, if they did that, then it was a huge miscalculation. That's one of the things. And there is a ton of criticism that is available to Israel and our relationship with Israel and our funding of that in the prosecution of their war. That's one of the reasons that I don't think that kind of Israel was involved, was because I think that Israeli intelligence is pretty damn smart. And I do think that if suddenly if they knew that they were breaking these ties with Charlie, or Charlie was breaking ties with them, and he was being very critical with them before he died, there's no doubt about that. But with that out in the public space, and then suddenly he gets killed, I mean, to me, that would only, if I was approving this operation, I'd be like, so wait, you're telling me we're going to kill the guy that has been speaking about us friendly, and now he's kind of turned it against us because of the war or whatever other reasons, 1,000 other reasons. And you think that that's going to not blow back on us? That seems like a major miscalculation. And you don't even have to respond to that. I mean, I'm just kind of thinking out loud.
Well, I mean, okay, so we can walk through that a little bit. I mean, because sure. if we scratch that one off, then I think the next like, I don't know, top 2, top 3, would be internally,
Okay. All right. So what do you think the motive behind if TPUSA was behind that? What do you think their motive would be?
Financial and power. I think it would be a money situation. If you look at their fundraising, if you look at their 990s over the last several years, they have had a dramatic, and I was trying to find an organization that I could compare them to. And sure. Frankly, it's pretty hard to find one that you could really compare them to. I certainly couldn't find one on the Democratic side. Yeah. But if you look at just the way they exponentially boomed.
Yeah.
What's interesting is not only did they start booming in the amount of money that they were raising, but they were booming in their expenses.
Sure.
And on those 990s, it doesn't dive, unfortunately, super, super deep into where all the money was going. And I guess maybe that's why Charlie was supposedly doing this audit, allegedly, or was that letter, 2 weeks or a month or whatever before, was that made up after the fact, or not made up after the fact, but was that something planted? I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
Or a non-issue, a non sequitur, right? Just a coincidence. We don't know, but I'm just throwing out all of the little facts that, or tidbits of information that we know. So I think if you get too close to catching someone in the cookie jar, that could be a problem. And the other thing is, how often do people announce that they're doing an audit before doing an audit?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the SOP for that is, or the standard for that would be. That's a great question. I don't know if other organizations have done that in the past. I don't know, like if that becomes public. Do you not think, though, that I would say that, to me, the obvious answer is that the reason that they were as successful as they were was 100% Charlie Kirk. I mean, Charlie Kirk was, and it still is, the brand of TPUSA even after he's dead. Man, if I was thinking about covering my ass, I guess if it really comes down to, hey, you know what, I've been I've been extorting money or laundering money, or what's the legal term for pulling money out of a company. Anyways, if I was doing that and I just want to keep myself from going to jail, I guess maybe. But are we talking about such a large group of people that they have the power enough to? And so if that's the case, let's say that's the case, TPUSA, somebody in the organization or multiple people are in the organization are afraid that if they don't kill Charlie, they're going to be exposed for committing some sort of fraud, right?
Mm-hmm.
So who do they, is Tyler still not the shooter, or is it somebody else? And how does Tyler get involved with that scenario?
He becomes still a patsy, right? He's someone who is involved, someone who you're able to kind of blame I'm not exactly, I hadn't been on the Discord chats or whatever and figured out all the things, but I think even someone like a Hunter, Kozak, right, becomes even more of a likely candidate for someone who gets roped in, because he had been, I guess you could say, a usual suspect. Not in terms of suspect in the traditional sense of the word, but someone who had been around, and been not a pain, but like been, had followed TPUSA around and spoken about them.
Make sure I'm following you correctly. So basically you're saying, hey, we've identified this guy that is trolling TPUSA. And so
that's a better way to put it. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and we decide we're going to pin this on him.
We're going to allow him to ask the question.
Okay. Oh, you're talking about Hunter Kozak. You're not talking about the
not Tyler per se. I'm saying that this is how maybe some of these players get involved unknowingly, right? Like, so yeah, okay. So okay, this guy went, because they approve all of these questions ahead of time. And all right, this guy wants to ask a question. Yeah, we're gonna let him come in and ask a question. And so maybe they do that, because there is, if you look at the footage, there is kind of a weird interaction that happens before Hunter asks his question.
Okay.
I say weird, but there is a pause in where what's his name?
Charlie picks up the mic, talks, and then lays it back down, and there's kind of like a moment of silence there.
Terrell walks up to him. Yep, there's like just a little shuffle.
Okay. Now, so in that scenario, who pulls the trigger, and then how do we get Tyler to the roof?
I'm not sure that it was Tyler on the roof to begin with.
Okay.
I mean, it could have been, it was someone, right? I just don't know that it was him specifically.
Fair enough. Do you think at that point that is where the shot came from, though?
No.
Okay. So where do you propose that the shot actually came from?
I'm sure your audience is going to love this, but I don't think y'all cut me some slack. Okay. I don't think that the shot came from there. I think that it was some sort of explosive situation from the lavalier mic.
Okay. Yeah, no, fair. Look, I've talked to Blake Bednar's at length on the phone on that, and I've listened to kind of his. Look, I've done a lot with explosives. I think you have a physics problem if you're talking about some sort of explosive device, and then if you're talking about some sort of other device that's going to initiate some sort of projectile enough to see the damage that we saw with Charlie. I still think you have a physics device. I mean, you can't get away from the fact that you're always going to have an equal and opposite reaction. So if we have an explosive device that is essentially some sort of shape charge hidden in that microphone, and I have some Rode mics right over there, that little it's really a transmitter, microphone transmitter. The problem with that is that you have an equal and opposite reaction. And so even if we direct most of the force, I guess we're talking about like a shape charge where we're actually pushing something toward him, or internally. And then I've heard this explained a couple different ways, where it's like, no, the wound was actually underneath his shirt, and then like this is some sort of exit wound or whatever. What's up, buddy? How are you? What's your name?
Brock.
Man, I didn't know there was this kind of party. I'm taking my shirt off too. What's happening, Brock? How you doing, bud? Nice. Your mom's a superstar. Did you know that? You know that, right?
Never a dull moment. Never a dull moment. Sorry.
No, I've had 4 of them. I know how they are. And my wife has had 5, including me, so she's still. anyways, but you have a physics problem there where we don't see whatever goes this way is going that way. And the fact that we don't see his shirt torn, we don't see any burns. I think that if you had a physicist or actually try to get a PhD on explosives to come on and talk, and then she looked at the case and she was like, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. I'm like, all right, I get it. I don't blame you. But I do think there's a physics problem with that. But then the other problem that I have with that theory, and you tell me where I'm wrong, Kelly, is if it's TPUSA, they know that they're going to have to involve the FBI, Utah authorities, probably other investigators, including the ATF. All these people are going to get involved, and they're going to look at the ballistics. They're going to look at all this stuff. And now we're saying, hey, the narrative is, hey, we're saying he was shot with a 30-06, but he was actually killed with this explosive device or whatever device. And to be fair to Blake Bednarz, when I talked to him about it, he's like, well, I don't really think it's an explosive device. I think it's something new and different. I don't know what that means. I don't know how you can give that a physical explanation. But then my follow-on question would be, how would TPUSA get a hold of such a device? And then how would they be able to reconcile this is not a 30-06? Because if it was an explosive device that killed him, I mean, forensics and the defense are going to be able to figure that out real quick. So, like, how do you reconcile those questions in your mind?
I think we both know there's a whole lot of funny business that goes on. No, I don't know exactly, but I think that there's a lot of technology that we don't know. I know that 100 years. So I took my boys to the National Spy Museum in DC last year, and I remember seeing that we were using pigeons in Germany in 1915 with cameras on them.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm like, look, if 100 years ago we were successfully using pigeons with cameras on them, imagine what we have now, right? That the average folk don't know of, right? But I also think that there's potential that they didn't want this situation to be a butler and have anyone accidentally be hurt outside of Charlie, right?
Okay.
And so that's why I feel that they wanted it to be on the body.
Okay. Why? How do they make that explosive device look like?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I also don't think that there was anything to indicate that Tyler, for example, would have been skilled enough to, make that shot.
Oh, my 9-year-old was shooting 1,000 yards by the time he was 9. Look, 140 yard shot is look, I could take anybody. I could take your son was named Brock.
Yeah. I
would take Brock, and I'm telling you, in 10 minutes, I can put him on a 140 yard target with a 30-06, and he would hit it every single time. Like 140 yards with a magnified optic is there's no skill involved. Yeah. In a 22-year-old, he has some background on it. That's a fair. But
yeah, there's so many people around and moving around in front, and I mean, lots and lots of variables. We're not just talking targets, We're not just talking targets. We're talking live people. Anyway, there was another question that you had in there though, and I think someone else had asked too. But sorry, go ahead, Gary.
I would just. My follow-on question would be there's definitely technologies that we're not aware of 100%. Like DARPA does a bunch of stuff. There's all kinds of different government agencies and other contracting firms that, are in defense that work on technologies that we're not aware of. That's 100% accurate. There was technology that when I was in special operations that we were using in 2008 that people still aren't aware of, right? So all of these things are true. I've never seen a technology defy physics. And I think that's part of the problem that I have with this is that part of it. The other thing I would say is if that is some technology that we're not aware of and TP USA is the culprit behind it, how would they get that technology? Because
they're tied. Hey, how did they? You look it up. There has never been another civilian flown on Air Force Two whose body has been flown on Air Force Two before.
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
made sure that body was.
That's just somebody making a decision to do something like that. Because here's my thing: is like the companies. Let's say that technology exists. All right, so we have this very black operation, highly classified technology, and somebody comes to me from TP USA, and I own this, and like I can't allow this to be exposed to anybody. And they're like, "Look, hey, buddy, we gave you $1 billion or whatever it is, or we did these favors for you. Now we need you. We're going to kill Charlie Kirk with this, and we need you to risk this unbelievably classified experimental technology to kill Charlie Kirk." My answer would be like, "Hey, I wouldn't risk that for my technology secrets to be exposed. And by the way, there's about 1,000 other easier ways to get the job done if that's what you want to do." Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So
that makes sense. No, I get it. That makes sense. Maybe the point though was for it to be a very public ordeal because they wanted to. I think there could have also been an incentive to galvanize the party or to really prove a point or to. I mean, there are, again, we're just talking hypotheticals here, right? Like I'm not, please.
I'm not gonna
y'all don't, come for me with like, we're just talking hypotheticals. Okay.
I think, look, I think you're a really good representation of a lot of people out there. You're not dumb. You're intelligent. You've done some things in life. And I think this is very insightful, and hopefully people understand this opportunity. Number one, you're brave enough to come on here and talk about these things. And so I really appreciate that. And it's very insightful to me to see where people's minds are on this. And I want to be respectful and like, here's the thing, like if I say some things and I didn't sell you on it or vice versa, it's not your fault. It's my fault. I didn't explain it well enough. Whatever I said wasn't compelling enough. So I shouldn't get angry at you because I didn't win you over on my side or what I think the facts are. So there's clearly, and I'm not even trying to, I'm not trying to like, come on, Kelly, you got to believe what I believe. Join my cult. And you're like, no, join my cult. That's not what this is about. It's about a free exchange of ideas so we can see where everybody's coming from. And I hope people understand what this debate is about or discussion is about. It's not a debate. And be able to see inside each other's brains. And I think both of us kind of represent a large group of people out there so that we can see each other as fellow Americans. And, people on your side are going to see me as, just I think incorrectly, and people on some of my side are going to see you as like, oh, she's thinking incorrectly, and who cares? Like, it doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, it's fine. At the end of the day, it helps all of us to understand this better, and that we're all talking through it. So that's what's most important. I just keep glancing down and trying to, because I want to make sure that I am trying to address when I can some of their questions, but there's so much engagement that I can't keep up with it.
First of all, don't look at the chat. You'll get distracted. You won't be able to. Yeah, I've done this 1,000 times. I don't even look at the chat. That's why I tell people, look, we're going to talk first.
Okay. Sorry.
No.
Sorry, guys.
we will get to all of their questions. I promise you, and we'll do that in the next. We've been going. We're at Well, 100. We're at an hour 24. We'll kind of end our talk. And if we need to do part 2, I'm fine with it. But we'll end our talk in the next 6 minutes. And we'll spend some time addressing questions. How about that? So real quick, because this is really important. I think this is probably one of the most important parts of this entire discussion. When it comes to citizen journalism, if we want to replace the mainstream media, which they deserve to be replaced, like what are the principles and what is the right path of doing that to make sure that we maintain our credibility going forward?
There are several things, and this is weighed really heavy on my mind. I think, for one, reading and being considerate before you press that send or post button, you know, that's step one.
Yeah.
You know, have you taken a step to do any independent research on what you're about to post?
Yeah. Or are you just regurgitating or reposting something without a second thought to it? I think that's really important.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of times that I have literally seen people just say, or what appears to be scream, because they put so much in all caps, right? As fact in big, bold, and dramatic letters, it just is jarring to me. And so I would just ask that please people do think twice. Another thing that I'm really thinking about too is what kind of, training could we have? I mean, so coming from the traditional journalism background, and I don't even know if this, new media, non-traditional journalists would be interested in anything like this, but I thought this week, I was like, maybe I could reach out to some of these foundations or something like that to see if anyone would be interested in something. But investigative reporter.
Let me interrupt you there real quick. I just want to. Let me interrupt you there for just a second. So your thing right there, I just thought it's kind of a funny thought in my head. So you're going to reach out to these news organizations or news journalists, college, and then say, hey, do you mind providing some training to the people that are going to replace you?
No. It's not like that. It's like I'm just talking like for funding of something, because, at the end of the day, there are, I mean, for basic principles and resources, because, who's gonna, how do we come up with like our own little code of ethics? Do we have a code of ethics?
We should.
Or is it just the wild, wild west? Because that's what old media has become, the wild, wild west. Yeah. And is that what we want it? Is that what we want new media to be? How do we decide that?
Yeah, I think, look, the problem that we're at with the old media was they were chasing views and clicks, and they were captured by their audience. So, and what I mean by that is we saw where MSNBC, CNN kind of catered to the left. And then we see where Fox News, I think objectively speaking, they are a little bit more objective, but they definitely cater to the right. And both sides of that political debate, they omit, or those political, because they're political arms of, they call themselves media, but they're, basically political entities. They omit a lot of information, and they skew the perspective in a certain direction so that their viewers like what they're saying. And the problem that I see is that we see a lot of the same thing going on within social media now. It's like some of these people, if there was an off ramp, let's say, and I'm going to give some exceptions to that, by the way. There are a lot of people out there that don't have the courage to come out and say, hey, you know what, we were wrong on this, we were wrong on that. There's exceptions to that. But I think ultimately, if we're going to present ourselves as, journalists, and even use that word, citizen journalists, I think like we got to be going after the truth. Damn the ratings, damn, audience capture. I won't do it. And I'm in a unique position where I do not make money off social media. Like my lifestyle, everything that I do is provided for my business. So I don't rely on this for anything. Now, if I want to expand this, and I do, I really feel like this is a direction that I want to go, and I want to expand this and all those things. Like I have to start looking at it more as a business and not in a way that's not like there's some things that I just recently hired a producer. Like I need some help with growing this, but at the same time, I want to make sure that we stick to our principles. And that is we're looking for the truth. And, you know, I'm not going to cater to an audience. If you don't like me, if you don't like what I have to say, if I lose you the first time that you disagree with me, then you know what? It's just a relationship that wasn't meant to be, and that's okay. You know, I wish you all the best. But, you know, I see a lot of the social media journalism starting off in the same way that the old journalist, the old media ended. And that to me is scary, because then we have nothing left. And that's a real problem. And I want to give a shout out to Ian Carroll. He actually messaged me this morning, or it was yesterday morning. I kind of broke this. I didn't break the story. I shared some of the things that I'd found through Jane Doe, who you know. I'll link her stuff down there. But she had found the flyer that indicated that the UVU event was going to be held on. It was actually first launched on August 27th. And then Ian Carroll chimed in and was like, hey, you know, basically some really gracious words. I need to change that. And then Candace Owen jumped in and said some things too. And she got some replies, and everybody was very kind and gracious to one another and that whole thing. And somebody said, you know, I wish it was always like this. And that's exactly what we could be doing, right? We could be combining forces with people that we disagree with, but that we show a modicum of respect, and we can combine our resources to get to the truth if that's really what the objective is. And I'm concerned that that's not for some people, but you know, it is what it is. No, Kelly, I've had an awesome conversation. We're gonna get some questions on this, and again, folks, be respectful. If your question is just full of haterade or any smack talking, I didn't even mean to click that one. Did anyone mention genitalia? I mentioned genitalia. I didn't even mean to click that. I was scrolling up and I hit the button. I mentioned genitalia. Let's see. Thatcher Freeman, appreciate the discussion. I would love for Kelly to grab her list and summarize what are the top 5 to 10 most suspicious things she's seen on this event. Oh, that's actually a pretty good one. What's your top 5?
Okay. Let's see. In no particular order. I'll just rattle.
I'm not going to challenge you on any of them. I just want you to be able to get it out.
I'll just rattle off a few of them. Okay. One, I think historically, I think TPUSA did lives on these on these college tour things, and apparently there was some discrepancy about if they were streaming it back to someone. Okay. But then they actually weren't running it. They weren't streaming it live. And so it was strange that it wasn't being streamed live. To the way that the security behaved, you know, I think that was strange. That was surprising. I'll say it was surprising to people that none of the security looked for the shooter. They just solely dogpiled onto Charlie, and no one was looking for the threat. Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm so tired after this conversation. Let's see. Oh, Mikey McCoy's behavior, like the phone going literally here, moved straight out. as you know, no dial, just straight out the tent and no turning back and straight.
I will ask you on that one. Did you see their segment on specifically kind of a counterpoint to Candace's pointing that out? Did you see TPUS's response on that specific thing? Because I think it is important.
That he supposedly was calling people?
No, that he was actually in the middle of, he was holding his phone, and as they're talking about this, they're showing, you know, the video that he was holding his phone. What he had been doing, according to them, he had been taking pictures and video, and then, you know, he was uploading them during the event, which, you know, like we do that even with our like carbine courses and stuff. So, okay. And then their explanation for him to go and didn't look like he was dialing or anything and went straight to a phone was that the shot went off and he put both his fingers in his ear and his phone was in his hand. So I just want to throw that out there. You can check it. If you haven't seen that clip, I think it's actually at least worth hearing the other side of that argument. But
no, I think they did the best. That's probably the best that they could have come up with, you know, a counter to
Sure.
that. But if you do look at the overall what appears to be kind of the orchestration or as a whole, if you look at the multiple people texting and looking at their phones and looking up and texting all at the same time, like simultaneously, it's quite interesting. Gosh, you know, there are just so many things about this. I'm sorry, like I literally have a whole laundry list. We can come back if you let me do a part two. I'll have a list of 30 or 50 of these things for you. I'm like, I gave you
no worries. In a report I seen, Tyler said he did not pull the trigger, but knows who did, and they promised to protect him. I'll answer this, and then you can opine as well. I like to see that report. I haven't seen anything that has said that. I'd like to not only see that report, I like to know who that comes from, and then what evidence they have for that, because that's brand new to me. I don't know if you've seen anything like that. Have you? It says in a report I seen. Michelle saw this report. That apparently Tyler said he did not pull the trigger, but knows who did, and they promised to protect him.
Michelle, we would love a follow-up to that because I have not seen anything regarding that. I mean, I don't think he's talked to anyone.
Right? Yeah, I haven't seen that. I've seen lots of reports. And I saw somebody told me about a report today, and then I tracked said report down, and said report didn't exist. But I don't know. Dennis Green says, "Hey Gary, this shows why Occam's razor is useful. When an event requires too many synchronized moving parts, it becomes increasingly unlikely." Sure.
And to Dennis, I would say that so if you look at my profile, if I can plug my profile for a second, Gary. So I did a piece using kind of my old journalism days. And at the beginning, I cite Occam's razor because I talked to a few of my law enforcement friends about the case early on, and they cited Occam's razor. Kelly, just think about Occam's razor. But it doesn't make sense.
I think the term Occam's razor is overused and right now, and people often have been using it in an incorrect way as well. I hear some really like, "Oh, it's definitely drones. I mean, Occam's razor." I'm like, wait. Drones is the simplest. Yeah. Like, that's not the Occam's razor that I know. I'm just going to throw that out there. But anyways, all right. So Michelle Catania says, sad point is the young kid is going to lose his life for something he didn't do, allegedly. But go ahead.
That's part of why I feel compelled to dig as much as I can. It is, you think about just the idea of someone potentially losing their life. It's sad. And of course probably it happens more than we even know. Unfortunately.
And what I would say is, to her point, is I feel the same way, maybe in a different way. But look, Tyler definitely deserves a fair trial. There's no doubt about that. And I'm very eager to see the evidence that comes out. And my God, I hope they televise this and don't pull. If they don't televise this, the impact on America and what little faith and trust is left in law enforcement or the U.S. government will go to nothing. Right. In the same tone or the same sentiment, I also believe that people have a right to not be accused of something without evidence. And I do think, and I know because I've talked to some of them, I think some of these people that are being accused of things without any evidence or in spite of evidence against it, their lives are being destroyed. And imagine if, for instance, Erica wasn't involved. And look, well, I won't get into that, but if Erica wasn't involved and she had this trauma of losing a husband, and on top of that, we have multiple people, saying that she was potentially the person to do that. Imagine the additional trauma on that. And then imagine 10 years from now when her kids are older and are looking through social media and they come across the idea that, their mom was actually the one orchestrating or part of this conspiracy to kill Charlie. I think if that is not true and that happens, or, these people that are being pointed at that weren't involved with this and their lives are being upended, destroyed, and they're getting death threats and God knows what else, and they weren't involved, I think that's a real shame. Just like I feel like it's a real shame that if Tyler wasn't involved and he gets accused by this and ultimately convicted, it's a shame as well. And I think all those things, I think we need to be aware of all those things. And area really covered is multiple people from the UVU trans community forecasting the incident online before it happened. I don't know if I've seen them forecasting this. Have you seen anything on that?
I have seen a little bit about it, but I wasn't sure. I guess the legitimacy of those posts or if they were fabricated or not, because I didn't dig into that part myself. I did see some of those screenshots. That's what all I can say is I saw some of those screenshots early on, but I didn't pursue that part.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Michelle Tantania says, Gary, thanks for all your honesty and knowledge on the cases to find justice. Play Charlie and don't ever change for anyone. I won't change for anyone. And Kelly, I don't want you to change for anyone either.
Thank you.
Unless it's your husband, you can change for him. Oh, sorry. Sorry. That was my part. I'm an asshole. Sorry.
That's probably why I'm not married.
You should have changed, Kelly. You should have changed. My God, why did you change? This is what happens when you don't change. River Life Pottery. Look at Paramount Tactical excelling at diplomacy, encouraging conversation between ideas. Well, that's typically what we do here. I'm not always perfect at it. Look, I get a little spicy and I got to reel it in a little bit sometimes on X. And I did today. I was, I'll be honest, I was driving and I happened to see some things on Twitter and I responded really quick. I'm like at a stoplight. I'm like, real quick. And I respond to it. And then the lady in response was like, kind of like, you're being an asshole. And I looked at, it wasn't that I was being intentional. I was just trying to be brief. And I looked back and I saw the couple of responses that I had. They were short, they were curt. They sounded much more aggressive or confrontational than I intended. And I apologized to her. And I think we all need to do that, right? Like we all need to try to show people respect. With that being said, Kelly, I'm sure you've had, trolls that like, you're not going to convince them and, or they're just there to throw ad hominems. Like just don't engage with them. And that's one thing that I have gotten better at in the last 6 months. Like if it's not going to be productive, don't waste your time. Don't waste their time. If you got a channel or something, just ban them. Like, there's no point in it.
Unless you come for my kids, and if you come for my kids, then I'll give you a piece of my mind. But
yeah, game on. You come after my kids, my family, I will hunt you down to the ends of the earth, and I'm not even kidding. Shinzo Abe assassinated in 2022. Prime Minister of Japan. Shirt did the same thing. Gary, watched the video. Bednars. Awesome. Blake, what's going on, buddy? I will definitely check that out. And I've been meaning to link up, Blake. We need to have a further discussion on a couple of things for some testing as well as some other points. Matt B., can you explain to her how exploding Mike would have shredded the T-shirt, powder burns, and shrapnel to the chin? Yeah, I would say that we'd have to. I think she knows that. I think that would be a waste of time. I think like Blake, who is West in the best Texas. I think he has an idea of some other things, and I'm willing to explore those. I still think that we have a physics problem, but I am not so ego driven in my own look. I am very aware that I am not that smart, and I'm very aware that there's a ton of knowledge gaps that I have. So there could be something out there that could explain this, and I'm willing to be open to that idea. I still don't see how TPUSA would get a hold of that if they were indeed. To me, that almost points back to a state-sponsored element or even our own country. And I have a hard time wrapping my head around some of those. All possibles. All you need to do is give me some evidence, and I'm willing to explore this. Is it possible that a 22-year-old orchestrated this so flawlessly that everyone's questioning what's really going on? I don't think it's that complicated, to be honest with you. If we go with kind of like what the evidence kind of points to, I don't think it's that complicated. I don't think it's that hard or needs a lot of orchestration. I think he planned it. I think there was more planning than we think. And I also think that most kids today are a lot more tactically minded. They've grown up playing extremely realistic video games like Call of Duty and things like that. Like, I've had conversation with like my friends' kids about like full-on military organization and operations that I'm like, how the hell does he know this? Like, oh, Call of Duty. I'm like, oh, or they talk about CQB or some of these other things that I'm like shocked that these younger kids, like a 10-year-old, actually knows about. But what's your thoughts on that, Kelly?
Look, anything's possible at this point. I was actually just thinking in my mind to ask you about, and this is a whole different concept, so sorry if I'm taking us in an entirely different route, but what do you, y'all gonna get upset?
No.
Okay, what do you, can we just explore the idea for a second about a simulation? Like, can you tell me about simunition?
Simunition in what way? Are you talking about like a special effects type of thing?
Simunition ammo, yeah.
I know what simunition ammo. Like, I got a couple cases of it over there, and a bunch of sim guns over there. Like, what do you like? In what regard? Where would it?
So, like, I understand that, you know, at least one of the guys, you know, did trainings and stuff with simunition, held trainings in the past with simunition, and so it just had
or somebody else.
Security, yeah, on the detail.
Okay.
And so, you know, it was one of my theories.
Sure.
Who could be, you know, who could really help orchestrate something like this? Well, someone who puts on large scale simulated events, someone who works with simunition frequently.
Yeah. So to use simunitions, they require, if you're going to use them in a pistol, they require a different barrel and a different slide, and they're very specialized. If you're going to use them in a gun, specifically ammunition, there's other things that we could talk about that could be used in a standard like bolt action rifle. There's things that I guess you could. I don't know of anything I don't know anything commercially available. But I could, back here on my reloading press, I could probably make something that would do something similar as a simunition. But a simunition rifles are very specific. They at least need a different upper. If you're using an AR, they have a completely different bolt. And then the range on those for accuracy are about, I don't know, 20 yards, 30 yards, something like that. So it's not very far.
Precise. So yeah.
I think you and I would probably have to flesh that out a little bit. I'm trying to give me, you know what? Just give me the, go ahead.
Yeah.
Give me the scenario. I don't care if you're technically accurate or anything else. Just give me the scenarios so where I can kind of digest what you're trying to say.
Well, I mean, I guess I don't know enough about the concept to know exactly the precise scenario. I just know for someone who's in the security detail to know a lot about conducting an active shooter trainings with simunition.
Sure.
Is just interesting to me.
I've done that. We do simunition courses 3-4 times a year where we do force on force with CQB. And I've done it at large scale, both in the military and other places. Like where, so are we saying, I'm just trying to figure out, like, is the shooter on the roof using simunition, or are we saying something else? I just,
oh, Barry, I don't want to, I feel like I'm stressing you out now. So we can rewind.
You're not stressed out at all. All right. I just wanted to try to answer your question correctly. Your question, I guess. All right. We'll move on. Think about that if you want to add to something that later. Philip Taborek, Kelly, TR lived 4 hours away, didn't attend UVU, but was there. Why did his parents recognize him and his rifle? Why did he threaten to unalive himself and confess to his parents? Audio analysis confirms one shot.
So, well, I mean, why did his parents? I don't know. I'm not his parents, so I don't know. But did they really at this point? I mean, we're just going off of what we've been told. Okay.
That is in the charging documents. I don't know how far that goes with you. And I put a lot of merit on the charging documents because that's going to be cross-examined. And if anything in those charging documents are inaccurate, I think we can definitely flesh this whole, people are going to, and I think they would be fair to do so. Like, for instance, again, if they get the parents up on the stand, because this is the charging document right here, and it talks about it very clearly that it says in here that his parents both individually and independently recognized him and thought it was their son, and they spotted the rifle. So if they get them on the stand and, the defense says, hey, is it true that you said that you thought that was your son? They're like, we never said that. Well, we got a problem. So, I don't know.
I mean, that's, he said, she said at that point, right? We have he said, she said all the time.
Well, I don't think it's he said, she said. I mean, there's a difference between he said, she said, and then something that ends up in a legal document. Because the problem is if it ends up in these charging documents, that's going to be witnessed by multiple law enforcement and lawyers, right? I mean, the lawyers are going to be involved in this ultimately on kind of both sides.
Not in a charging document. I mean, at that point, the prosecutor, the state is just signing off on whatever the police have brought to them.
No, I'm talking ultimately. Well, here's what I'll say: if they go to disprove this, right? They charging documents or the information in here. Then and the parents get up there and they say, we never said that, but they said that in front of 2 investigators that were investigating that when Tyler ultimately turned himself in, and I guarantee you portions of what's in here is also on a recording, both video and audio. So if that is the case, and I don't see why that wouldn't be, because that whole discussion, I guarantee you, was recorded, then they're going to end up getting charged. If it's not true, then they're going to end up getting, well, if they said it, but then they try to deny it, then they're going to bring out other evidence, say, no, look, here you are on videotape saying this, or they're going to, undermine the entire case. My point is, if they put that information in here and it's not true, it will be pretty much proven by what we see on the stand. Now, if the state says, no, they did say that, but they can't produce a video, they can't produce an audio recording, they can't produce all the stuff that we would normally see with police investigatory process, then we got a real problem. So,
yeah, I feel like in previous charging documents that I've seen, in strong cases in the past, I've seen specifically it state that, per video recording, per audio recording, those things like laid out.
Sure.
Already just just because it's already laying out, hey, we have this, we have this, we have this. Like, there's no point in really like coming out with that after the fact, it's all of adding 8 more words to the document.
Coming out with what after the fact?
That, oh, we have this on audio recording. Oh, we have this on video recording.
I'm just saying, if I don't think we will see that. I'm saying that if the parents try to deny that they said those things that are in the charging document, but they did say in the scenario that, I don't know, they felt bad for what was going on and they said the stuff, but later on, because the defense tells them to recant it or whatever else, if they try to deny that, then the police and the prosecuting attorney, they're going to play that videotape. Like, here you are in the confession. There's Tyler. There's you. Is that you? Is that Tyler? Is that your husband? Yes. Okay. That's you saying this, right? Yeah. Okay. So you perjured yourself. That's what I'm saying in that scenario, that it did happen, but they tried to recant it later. Or this is true, or they didn't say this at all, but they put it in the charging document. In this scenario B, the mother didn't say this, the father didn't actually say this, but it ended up in the charging document. They're going to get them on the stand. They're going to say, we never said that. And then the state's evidence isn't going to be able to provide any evidence. And then you're going to do this show again with Gary, and we're like, Kelly, you were right. It was all bullshit. You're right. I'm sorry. You know what? That's what I'm saying. But I think we will have.
We gotta hope it makes it to that point.
I don't think it's going to make it to that point, because I think he's pretty guilty, and I think the evidence is pretty clear at this point. But that's why we have these shows, so we can talk about it and go on there. Keli Rabon says, so is this like he is still alive? Sorry, trying to keep up. I would love if that's true. I don't think that's what you're suggesting, right? But
I'm not convinced that he's not that he's
okay.
alive.
So, okay, all right. So
I think that there is. I maintain all scenarios in my mind, and as we were talking about earlier, I don't get married to one idea, because I think I do not pigeonhole myself to just one possibility. And so I've continued to look at all the different ways of well, what could this mean? What could this mean? What could this mean?
Sure. No, fair. So
I'm looking at things with multiple filters.
You think it's a possibility that Charlie Kirk is still alive, and that
I do think that it's a possibility. Yeah, I do think it's a possibility, and that's not just based on what we saw in that, just the incident there with the neck. Yeah. I mean, that also is including the evidence sort of that we saw leading up to that day and then after. I feel like there's little hints of things and different oddities that have raised more questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
What if he was still alive? What do you think that the motive behind that would be? What would Charlie's motive be?
So this is the really this is the hard the hard part. It is figuring out I think the harder question to answer is why would they allow him to continue to be alive? Like, I think that maybe it could have been that he was facing a such a threat from perhaps a foreign entity that he needed to get out of here before he was taken out.
Seems like there'd be easier ways to do that. Like, headline: Charlie Kirk died in his sleep. I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, I don't think that would be nearly as convincing as some public spectacle, but
that's okay. Yep. Let me ask you this: do you, with the weight of like in the charging document, do you find any of that evidence that they talk about in there? The DNA on the gun, the DNA on the spent cartridge, Tyler's DNA on the towel, references to, you know, him, whether you believe it's him or not. Like if do you weigh all these possibilities, but in the light of what we have in charging documents and what we know that different law enforcement agencies have stated, like, do you weigh these things equally, or are you like, you know what, I just don't believe anything in that charging document and or the evidence that they have presented forth?
I think that I do believe some of the charging documents. I just don't believe there's a lot of the charging documents that don't necessarily add up to me. You know, it's still strange to me that the FBI is involved in something that there's not a federal case. There's not been a federal crime committed. You know, this was one person who has never been elected to a political office in his life. And if you look on the FBI's website and all of the things that they investigate, like that, this is not it. Except if it involves, you know, something involving a foreign entity.
So if, I guess between 1 and 100, where would you put Charlie still alive? And in 1 and 100, you would put Tyler Robinson shot him. Where would you rate those?
I don't know.
Well, let's do 1 and 10.
Okay, say the question again. You mean you're
Here's this. Between 1 and 10, what do you think the chances are that?
Okay, I'll answer this and then I get to ask you. And okay, all right, okay. So ask me the question again.
Between 1 and 10, what do you think? 10 being, hey, he's definitely alive. 1, you know, it basically kind of what we see with what we get. Between 1 and 10, what do you think the chances are of him being alive?
Well, okay, I'll tell you this. The more that I see Erica, her parading around then the less I kind of feel that he's alive. So
Like a 3, a 2?
Yeah. So I'm at a 3.5. How about that?
So 3.5 on that one.
I had to really, I at least I didn't just blurt something out. Okay, I had to really think about it for you. You know.
I appreciate that. Between 1 and 10, what do you think the chances are that Tyler Robinson is indeed the killer?
The killer himself?
Yeah.
0.1.
So not 1, less than 1. Got it. All right. No, I want to see into your brain and I see how you
Yep.
think. That's fair. I love it. All right, what was your question for me?
Okay, so what are your, I don't know, your top, do you just have top one theory? Do you have top three theories?
I've tried hard not to like look, I think here's the problem that I have with some theories is you got to start out with a supposition and then find evidence to reinforce it. And I've tried real hard not to do that. What I try to do is just look at the evidence individually for each one and then come up with like, okay, how likely is this given the information that we have? And that's kind of how I've approached this. What I will say is the only other possibility for this in my mind, and I'll pull this up for you and I'll show you why. Which, by the way, folks, I'm probably going to do a live stream tomorrow on I think our 3D model will be done tomorrow with including the tent and everything. So
did you find somewhere to host it? I meant to ask you if you needed any help.
I may need help with that. So what I am going to do for sure, what people will be able to do is I'm going to make the file public. You'll be able to download the file, and then you'll probably have to like download Blender or another free program called Rhinoceros. And then of course there's some other higher end paid software that people can download and dump this file into and learn to manipulate it. So in the interim, I definitely am going to make the file public to everybody. They'll be able to download it, check it out, do all the stuff. I've been waiting to figure out how big we had to wait to figure out how big this file was and all those other things before we could even consider, okay, we're going to host it on this platform to where people can come and like sign in and do their own account. Because, and I don't even know if something like that's possible for a couple of reasons. Number one, the bandwidth that it takes if there's 10,000 people on it. And then number two, like if you're going to like put line of sights or draw lines or do measurements, like that would require an account for each person.
So it doesn't alter the original. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that too. But like if you got 10 people all on the same account and they're all drawing lines everywhere and they're measuring this or measuring that's where it gets a little weird. But what I will do is I'm going to let me pull this. I'm going to share this screen. If there is a additional shooter, look, here's what I believe from the evidence I see. I think we definitely are looking at a ballistic event. I'm trying to get rid of this. All right. I think we're definitely looking at a ballistic event. Everything to me looks like a gunshot, and I've seen a lot of gunshots. I've seen people killed. I've seen people shot. I know what gunshots look like. I just feel pretty confident about that. I'm open to other things. Like if you can show me, and I'm going to look at this video that Blake is referencing, and I want to take, and I genuinely am trying to be completely as open-minded as possible. I am. I know people will question that, but I am. And if I see something that points to something else, I'm completely open to that. But I've tried not to, like, even when we had the narrative, right? This guy, like, I wasn't convinced of the narrative for, I will say where I started to like, okay, I think this is true is when I saw this charging document. All right. And then a few other things came out where some other theories that I thought were plausible. There was other video or other footage that, at least in my mind, like completely kind of blew that off the table. Like, okay, that was one of the other things I was considering. That's not available anymore. But one of the kind of the question that I think is left, and somebody close to me believes this, and that's fine. So we have, let me just make sure I was doing it again. All right. So here's our model here. And this is the spot where allegedly Tyler or some other person was, right here. So this is where he was. and this has a very clear line of sight to the target. All right. The other possible place that has a line of sight and makes possible sense to me is back here. So if we had a patsy and this was the real shooter back here, that works. So that's the other plausible event in my mind. You know, so that I'm still open to. But I think when we, and the rest, I don't feel like I can make a determination until I see the rest of the evidence. And when we do see the evidence, I think it's going to be pretty overwhelming. I think we're going to see a lot more footage that's much more clear of Tyler. I think we're going to see other DNA evidence. I think we're going to see a pretty hard to overcome. And then the only answer to that is like this super involved conspiracy, which 100% is possible, where all of it's fabricated. I mean, the defense is going to have to be in on it. The FBI is going to have to be in on it. The Utah authorities are all going to have to be on it. There's going to be at least 100+ people that would have to be in on it to come up with a plausible scenario where all of it's fabricated. And I think that is really, really unlikely. So that's, did I answer your question?
Mine or someone else's?
Yours. I'm saying that I
mean, yeah, I think so. I think so.
I just want to make sure I answered it 100%. All right. Matt says if Tyler,
I'm excited to see more of the renderings. Those look amazing.
Oh, well, me too. I'm excited to see the stuff in it. Like
it's very impressive, and I really commend you for going down there and, you know, taking that next step. I wish that I would go down there in a heartbeat if I could, if I didn't have the kiddos. So, yeah.
All right. Hey, Blake, we will definitely do a show. That was one of the things I texted you the other day on it, and then we both got busy. We were supposed to call each other. So, yeah, anyways. Speaking of those renderings, a big shout out to my good friend Peter Morsink, who flew the drone. A big shout out to CJ Carenti, which I think I'm going to have him on tomorrow. CJ has spent thousands and thousands and thousands more time and money than me flying down there completely on his own accord. Hundreds of man hours that he's had an entire team of engineers putting together the tent, all where the camera placement. I mean, they have spent so much time and effort on that. So I appreciate you thanking me for that, but I got to thank CJ and Peter because really they did the work. All right, back to Matt Martin's question. If Tyler is a pretty smart guy, as he said to be, perhaps he didn't tell anyone until texting the furry. There might have been some indicators missed, but he didn't tell anyone. I think that's implausible. What's your thoughts on it?
Why would he text? Why would he text? Like, if he is that smart, I mean, why would he text? Why wouldn't he just call? Why?
I think he was planning. Here's my answer to that. If the charging documents are true, I think when he was sending those texts, he was planning on killing himself. That's my only answer to that. And I think that would be the mindset of someone that just committed. I don't think he planned on, I think originally, if that scenario is true, where Tyler Robinson did this, that person did not expect to get out of there alive. He may have not even expected to be successful to begin with. And I don't think he expected to get out of there alive. And then when he did, he was planning on killing himself. So that is one explanation to your question, as well as I think it's completely implausible that if he did it, Lance Twiggs didn't know about it. That's for sure.
Implausible that Lance didn't know about it.
Yeah. If he was planning it, I think people in his circle, and maybe mostly his online circle, would know about it. And there's no chance in my mind that Lance, like, suddenly you're taking the gun to the range, you're shooting targets, you took a trip up to UVU. Like, I think he talked about it to Lance. I think if those text messages did come from him, I think those text messages were prefabricated in an effort to clear Lance of wrongdoing. That's what I think is possible. Now, like you said, they could be completely fabricated and it's just a big frame job. It's possible. I mean, it's not undoable. Kelly Rains. Okay, so why would he do that? He's an open figure. Why do you think he would go into hiding? I mean, I would love that. I think you answered that, but if you want to answer any more, kind of add any more context to that question.
Why would he do?
It's about it. Her question is regarding Charlie Kirk faking his death, essentially.
Okay. I think that there's a variety of reasons. Yeah, I mean, I think because if he wanted to stay alive, I mean, if he wanted to stay alive and wanted his family to be protected and he wanted to see things continue to go on, I don't know. There's a whole wide variety of reasons why he may want to continue to be able to go on. And
yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think it's hard to come up with, if he really thought his life was in danger and some other things were going on, I think it's not that hard to come up with some plausible scenarios as to why he would want to fake his death. I agree with you on that. Kaylee again says, I mean, that would explain some things like reactions, what they did or didn't do behind the table, and the text messages, the bad explanations given. I mean, I'm not sold, but Tyler doing it is a hard sell. Cool.
Yeah, and also there's so many Tylers in this situation, right? We've got the Tyler Robinson, and then we've got the Tyler Boyer. I don't know if y'all have talked much about Tyler Boyer lately, but there's been a lot of chit chat about Tyler Boyer and some of his issues on the TPUSA side, and then the Terrell, who was the guy who was the photographer or whatever guy who then also went and took the selfie video, which was so weird. And also that Terrell guy who had taken the SD card out of the camera. All of those things were just strange behavior.
Yeah, no, fair. Michelle, I don't know if you sent that to her. Oh, no, never mind. It just popped in. You know what? Here's what we're going to do for Michelle. We're going to copy this link and we will play this. We will put this article up and we will all experience it together.
Thanks, Michelle.
Maybe we'll have some breaking news right here. And right where Gary it changes everything. Gary's,
right.
You know what? Let me see.
That's just what you need, Gary.
I'm ready to be red pilled anytime. I'm looking for the red pill. All right. So just so we're clear on this, what this says is the quiet storm. All right. So I have some problems with this already. But anyway, let's go ahead and read it. Quote. It's quoted. So this is true. I didn't pull the trigger, but I know who did. Tyler Robinson breaks the silence in court, and what he says in the middle of the trial changes the entire Charlie Kirk case. In a chilling moment that freezes the courtroom, Tyler Robinson suddenly rises from his chair, his voice trembling but fierce. I didn't pull the trigger, but I know who did. And it's time to come out. Robinson's bloodshot, defiant eyes are fixed on the camera as he speaks. His confession isn't just an emotional outburst, it's an explosion.
No.
Should you think we should go on? No. Was that the groundbreaking news that you were
say it ain't so.
Michelle, I think that's some creative writing. I don't know that is I don't know that is.
Okay, so I can actually, interestingly, sorry, my dog's barking, but probably somebody sent the army over here to come get me. They've said, we've had enough of you, Keli. We're sending somebody to your door.
If it's the ATF, your dog.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
Don't worry, I got a tough dog. Anyway, so I dealt with some of this crazy fake news. If you guys can hear me, sorry.
You're fine.
But this summer, so my kids we were involved in the July 4th floods, and well, my sons they were at camp in the hill country, and long story short, ended up getting wrapped up in a lot of fake AI Facebook news.
Sure.
And some of the stuff was kind of, I guess, funny in a way, but it was also really sad and kind of hurtful too. Maybe because it went on TikTok as well. Articles saying reels saying that we were saved by some Mexican immigrants from the sheriff brought in illegally to it was very outlandish. And that I was the sheriff's daughter and that we were rescued. It was all of this total BS. All that to say, you cannot just believe what you see on Facebook. But literally, these AI bots will use your name and your likeness and make these fake stories about you.
Yeah. And
that's what you're seeing right here.
And I just want to, so I clicked the source link just so we're clear. And it's a news thing that I've never seen or heard of, and it has kind of all the hallmarks of like a BS news story. So, and just so you know,
at first blush, it does. I get it. At first blush, it looks legit.
Yeah. But, and the other thing, folks, that like something like this, if this was reported and it was legit, it would literally be on every single news channel ever. It would be all over. Like you would see some verified, some legitimate sources, or at least more legitimate than this unknown generic, I don't know, website or whatever the heck this thing is. But it's not reputable to say the least. So there's that.
I did find myself though. I have found myself a few times, even in that case this summer, I was reporting it to Facebook that this stuff was false, and Facebook wasn't taking it down. And so that's like a whole other story for a whole other day. But it's very interesting that there is definitely a push to have this fake news out there. Sad.
Yeah. Well, listen, hold on. I think we got one more super chat and then we will, let me see. Wyatt Darrell, I dropped some screenshots in your X post to show some of the forecasting beforehand by the trans community. There was even songs published beforehand. I'll check that out, Darrell. Wyatt, I will say I'd seen some other things on this that are similar in story, and I did track those down, and I found out they were fabricated. Basically, they were things that were being said after his death, and then they had been, altered and dated beforehand. But I will definitely check it out. Why? So definitely, I'm glad you put it on X, and I will definitely do my best to track that down and whatever else. Folks, if you're not already, make sure you go follow Keli on X. She has a big following on Instagram as well. She's kind of a big deal over there, man. No joke. She's got like 130-some thousand subscribers.
Well, come follow me. Yeah, come follow me on X. Come follow me on YouTube. I'm trying to build those up because, apparently that's what the adults are doing these days. So it's time for me to level up like Gary over here.
I'm just a scrub YouTuber that runs a gun shop and does some training. No, listen, Keli, I really appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else that you kind of want to let people know or leave with people to think about before I let you?
I'm going to digest a lot of this stuff. I really appreciate y'all having me here. I'm so sorry for my dog barking now. He heard they were out for me. But no, thank you guys. Exactly. No, I really appreciate y'all hearing me out and having me. Thank you so much, Gary. And, look, at the end of the day, we're all just trying to figure this out together. And I think at the end of the day, like, all just want justice. Yeah. All just want to live in a world, in a country. We can't, at this point, I'm like, I can't control the world, but like, we want to try to like make this the best place to live that we possibly can. Okay. And so we're just trying to do our little part.
Yep. No, I agree. I think that's what everybody wants out there, regardless what political spectrum or whatever else. Some of us are, I'll just leave it at that. I mean, we're all going to disagree on how to accomplish that. And I think the same thing that we're going to see in here. What I will say is, just folks, just be aware out there that, the government lies to us. We need to be careful and have some good cognitive security to make sure that we're not being tricked by their lies. But there's other folks out there with a lot of different motives that are trying to trick us too. And we just need to be aware of that and be discerning, right? I mean, all of us should be discerning. And Keli, listen, I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate, like I said, let's stay in touch. Let's continue to collaborate on different things. I think you bring a lot to the table as far as experience and capabilities and things like that. And that's what I want to do. I want to build a coalition and not an echo chamber. I want as many people I hope everybody disagrees with everybody in there. I think that's the best way to do it. But we can sanity check each other. And I think if our heart's in the right place and we find some principles to work under, we can get that much closer to the truth, as opposed to, name calling and all the things that are just going to divide the country, divide everybody on this, distract people from getting to the truth. I think that's what it comes down to. Blake Bednarz, if you're still out there listening, man, I'd love to have you on. I'll give you a call at the show. And Keli, you're welcome on anytime. Anything you got to say, let me know. And you got my phone number, so if you need something, you can text me. And folks, we appreciate you. We appreciate you watching and listening, and we appreciate your support. And again, like, subscribe, all those things. Join as a member. Keli, you stay put. Don't go anywhere. And I'm going to close this out. But everybody else out there, pay attention to what's going on. This case is important. It really is. I think it's one of the most important cases that we've seen in a really long time. And figuring out who's telling the truth and who's not, I think, is really important as well. But until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.